Well, hello and welcome everybody. Now I don't know if you remember, but at the end of yesterday's video I was filming some of the wildlife in the snow, and I was using this this tripod, which it's just a cheap one off eBay. I think it says Velbon on it, DF61. And I've had this tripod for a couple of years, and I think I paid the grand total of, I think it was probably something like £16–17. It was ridiculously cheap, and I've got to admit I've been really quite happy with a tripod. I mean, I'm not in any type of professional photographer, so I don't need very good equipment, and this tripod's been quite good. But I had this tripod outside in the garden for about an hour, and when I came to bring it back in again, I just happened to touch, do you call that the pan and tilt handle? I don't know. It basically, you undo that so you can pivot up and down. What I did was I just picked it up, not really picked it up by the handle, but I suppose I did. I grabbed it by this handle, and the handle just broke off. Now I'm assuming it's because of the low temperature. It was about 0 degrees outside in the snow, maybe 0 or 1 or 2 degrees, but quite a low temperature. And we just seem to have like a brittle fracture across there. So it literally, you know, it just snapped. So I think the first job before I do anything else today is I need to try and glue this on. Not very exciting, I know. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some araldite or some cheap epoxy equivalent of araldite. I'm going to araldite it on there, and then I think I'm going to mix up some more araldite and I'm going to pour it down the centre of the tube, and hopefully it's going to grab around this piece of metal here and reinforce it. I'm not sure how good these cheap epoxy equivalents are to araldite. I'm not sure if araldite is any better than you know, any of the other brands that are around. I don't know, but you know, you buy this stuff for £1 from the pound shop, probably the same as the dollar store in America, and seems okay. So what I think I might do is I might just roughen the inside of this up and roughen some of the metalwork up and just give it a wipe down with IPA, and then we'll try and glue it back together. I do apologise, my fat belly keeps peeping out, doesn't it? You can see that I've had a very ample Christmas this Christmas. I've been eating and drinking like a pig, and I haven't been taking much exercise because the weather's been awful. So yeah, I've put a bit of weight on over Christmas. So we're going to have to take some exercise in the new year, aren't we? I can feel I'm only rubbing this plastic lightly, and it abrades really easy, so I'm assuming it must be you know, a very cheap material that they've used. Because I've just sprayed this with IPA. It'll be interesting to see if the IPA actually melts the plastic. I'll let you know any second now. Okay, right, we've done that. Time to mix up some goop. This is my box of kind of nondescript workshop chemicals. We've got all kinds of stuff here. We've got a syringe full of grease. We've got here's my 2-part epoxy, which I've wrapped up in an old rubber glove to stop it from leaking everywhere, because once you open this stuff it goes everywhere. What else have we got here? We've got some we've got some Servicol heatsink compound. We've got something called Loctite Super Epoxy. I'll tell you what, let's try using the Loctite Super Epoxy, because apparently it's super. What else have we got in here? I think we've got that weighs a ton. We've got some very out of date, no clean RMA dispensing solder there. God. Let's have another go at that. We've got some multi-coat, no clean RMA dispensing solder cream. Yeah, basically that's for doing surface mount stuff. You're not actually meant to keep this stuff very long, and it's got a date on it of 2008, but I've got to admit, it still seems to work. Sometimes what I have to do is I just wet it down a bit. I just stir it up on a spatula with a little bit of new flux, and it seems to work. But the kind of surface mount work that I do, it's not very taxing. Got a big tube of Yoo-hoo glue, got some little syringes, and then we've got some Vaseline. That's always handy. Now I've got some. What else have we got in here? Oh yeah, I don't know if they call that 720 pipe wire. Well, this pipe wire, it's kind of very strong, thin metal cable, and I get this from a fishing tackle shop. And what we use pipe wire for is sometimes if you've got an old valve radio and the dial string breaks on it, they use like a metallized wire, and it's very thin and it's very, very strong. So if you've got a dial cord to replace on an old radio, I do recommend you use this pipe wire stuff because it's very strong, and it's only cheap to buy a reel of it. And I think there's like, I don't know, I think there's maybe 20 metres on that reel for about £5. And then the other things we've got in here, we've got lots of Humbrol paint, which again I use for doing kind of craft repairs. And I've also got some of this clown face paint. Now what I use this stuff for is that I usually only use the white, but if you've got, again, dials on old pieces of equipment, you know, turning knobs, they might have had the pointer on it painted white. Well, this kind of waxy crayon stuff, it's quite good for things like, you know, touching up the dials on old Avo meters where the lettering's worn away, the paint falls off it. If you just smear some of this white face paint on, it just basically repaints the dial, so because it finds its way into the little nooks and crannies, and then you can see it reflected back white or whatever colour you use. So that's what I use that for. What's that? Oh, I think they're iron filings. What I got these iron filings for, I was going to make something called a coherer detector, which is a very early form of radio receiver. Basically, I think you could use them to receive kind of like a CW pulse. Don't exactly know how it works. Basically, you get you attach like a long wire to this cylinder of iron filings. It has an electrode at each end, and I believe when you get like an impulse or a spark of energy detected on the aerial, I think the particles of metal iron filings, I think that they somehow align and the resistance changes. I'm not exactly certain, but yeah, that was a little project that I wanted to build some point. We're going to have a go at building a coherer. So that's my box of interesting crap. Sounds like a Harry Potter film, that, doesn't it? Coming soon to a cinema near you, Harry Potter and the Box of Interesting Crap. Maybe not, eh? You know, this is bringing back unpleasant memories of a little medical procedure I had this year, man of a certain age and all that. Well, and I think this is going to be a job for the older foliated tungsten. Feels as though it could be setting that already, which is good because I don't want to spend hours holding it. And now I've just got to put it back together, and hopefully it will stay there. Right, you guys are going to have to stand there for 20 minutes and watch this set. Give me a shout when it's done. Well, it's only been about 2 minutes since I mixed up this epoxy, and it does seem to have cured and set already, or at least, you know, I can dig my fingernails into it, but it is in the process of setting. So I think without any further ado, what we'll do is we'll mix up some of the cheaper epoxy, and we're just going to pour a huge amount down here, and we're just going to fill up the cavity, and hopefully that'll just reinforce the joint, and then we'll leave the whole tripod for 24 hours, and I'll let you know whether or not it's a permanent fix or not. Who can tell? So we just need to mix up a bit more of that epoxy now, don't we? So I'm going to use this very cheap £1 epoxy, and well, as advertised by that bloke off Ground Force. I can't remember what his name is. Was it? I want to say Tommy Walsh. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, that's what we're going to use. It's I've had it ages, and it only cost £1, so we may as well use it. Right. Okay. So all we can do now is, well, I guess leave it for 20 minutes and see if it sets. You know, always quite interesting the chemical reaction you get when you mix this 2-part epoxy. This handle now feels really hot. It must be not far off 50 degrees because I can only just touch it. Ground Force, that's what he was in, Ground Force, wasn't he? With, oh, what was the name of that girl in it? Oh, I don't know. I can picture her now. Oh, what was her name? Wasn't that programme he was in called Ground Force, him and that other woman, and that Alan Titmarsh bloke? Was it Titmarsh? I don't know. Again, another show that I really hated. Oh, that was it, yeah. Titmarsh and Charlie Dimmock, wasn't it? The one with the enormous tits outside my window. 2 lovely red breasts. Well, here's a new camera angle for me. I seem to have come over old Big Clive. Well, there's a sentence I never expected to say. And also, just like Big Clive, we've got one of these Chinesium depth adapters, which does actually allow us to just stick it in any hole. So the power supply that came with the CNC engraver we're playing with had this 2-pin power lead on it. I don't know if that's a Chinese power lead or if it's American or continental, I don't know. So they do supply it with this adapter, but as we say, it's potentially quite unsafe. So what I think we'll do is we'll cut this 2-pin power connector off it and we'll just wire on a conventional UK British standard plug. Well, I've got some breaking news for you. I was just about to wire up this figure of 8 cable and put the UK British plug on it, and I had a comment come in from John Bailey, which was really interesting because John has said that he also decided to replace the plug on his because I guess he didn't want to use these depth adapters, and he'd noticed how thin the wiring was. I'm not sure if it's thin or not. He said he wasn't sure whether his cable was copper or not either, and I wouldn't be surprised if these machines are coming from a variety. They might, you know, they're probably being put together by a variety of people. So he might not have quite the same cable as I've got, but it does feel a bit shoddy. I mean, the material feels almost sticky. There doesn't feel like there's a lot of insulation on it. But I did check my wires. They are definitely copper. But I think basically what he recommended was throw the cable away and use, you know, just use a new bit of cable. And so just rummaging around in my junk box, yes, I have got another of these figure of 8 cables. I don't know if this will be any better than the one I've got though, because this probably came from a dubious eBay supplier as well. Yeah, John's definitely right. There's substantially less copper in the cable that came with it. Yeah, I'm sure you can see that. There's quite a big difference there, isn't there, between the two cables. You can see that I've got 2 blue wires where I bared the ends off, and the much thinner one here that I'm kind of got my finger on there, pointing at, trying to point at it. That one has got substantially less copper in it than the than my cable that I've just got out the junk box. So yeah, I think, you know, basically, John, well spotted for that. I think that's probably a good tip to throw this cable away and just replace it with a new figure of 8 lead. So I'm going to do that next. And the other thing that John said was that the way I installed the stepper motor on the Y-axis of the machine, I've got the cable pointing down, which makes it probably vulnerable when you drag it across the desktop. So again, I think that's another good tip. So we're going to go away and I'm going to turn that motor around as well. So that was brilliant comments there, John. Thanks very much. And I'd be interesting to see, I don't know if you're going to post a video at some point, John, but I'd love to see your first cuts. It's always nice to compare and contrast. Right, so let's put this on. I always do wonder why plugs come with 13 amp fuses in. So few appliances actually need a 13 amp fuse. The smallest I've got at the moment is 3 amps. Probably would have put a 2 amp in if I could have found one. I think I better get me. Oh, bugger. Right, I think I'll just run downstairs and get my dad to check this. That would take me back to my youth, getting your dad or your granddad to check your plugs that you'd wired up. Yeah, well, I think I will just follow John's very good suggestion of just turning this Y-axis motor down, because at the moment I've got the cable exiting the bottom, and I guess it's quite vulnerable. If I slide this across the bench, it's quite likely the cable will get pulled or caught or snagged and end up ripping the wires out the bottom of the stepper motor. So we'll it sounds like good advice from John that we'll just turn it over. Oh, damn, bloody rounded off Allen key. Let's see if these are any better. It's always annoying, isn't it? Allen keys, especially the small ones, they always tend to round off. It's usually worst, isn't it, when you're trying to do something like take a knob off an old valve radio, and oh, they get terribly seized, don't they? You know, you have those repair jobs where you've got to take the chassis out of the radio cabinet, and there's always one knob. There's always one knob that just gets stuck, and you know, you spend hours. You spend more time trying to get the knob off the radio than you do actually doing the repair itself. I think I'll take that out the side there like that. I think that should be fair enough. So, I don't know, is this going to be part 5 of the CNC video? We've not really done a lot of CNCing today, have we? I don't know. I was wondering whether or not to try and lubricate these cross slides with something. I don't think I really want to put any kind of heavy oil or grease on it, because I think any dust that comes off the work when we're doing the milling, I think any dust is going to, you know, jam everything up, or, you know, lead to actually forming like an abrasive slurry that's going to end up wearing the nuts out. But I kind of wondered whether or not it'd be worth putting some dry lubrication on. I've got some of these PTF lubricants that you use on things like bike chains that don't leave, well, it's a dry film lubricant basically. I think it uses PTFE or Teflon. It might be Teflon actually. So yeah, I'm thinking that I might bother to put some of that Teflon lube on. I don't know if it'll need it or not, but it kind of makes me think that perhaps there should be something on it. Well, I think I'm going to actually take the plunge and have a go at trying to engrave something. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to engrave that test program, that iPhone. So I'm putting this little router bit in, which is, I don't know, I call it, it's kind of a V shape, isn't it? And yeah, these are very, very sharp. I think these might be quite handy to keep around for maybe opening up holes in PCBs and stuff like that. I might even put a little handle on one of them. It could be a handy tool to have on the bench. So we'll put that in there. One thing I don't like is these chucks don't seem, or collet, it's probably better to call it a collet. I wonder if we can get an updated or a better collet from this, because it just doesn't inspire confidence. I think it's gonna break. Okay, so I've inserted that as deeply as it will go into the collet. Ow, oof, it is sharp. I'm trying to tighten it up evenly on both sides as well, which is probably easier said than done. Well, I've tightened up. It doesn't feel terrifically positive, that. I don't know. Again, just have to try it. Haven't got any choice, have we? Quite small Allen screws, those 1.5mm Allen screws. I think I will put a little bit of lubricant on the screws, and I'm going to use this stuff that's designed for bike chains, and it's a synthetic lubricant and it's a dry lube. So basically it is a liquid, but I think that's just alcohol, and basically what happens is you put this on and the liquid evaporates, but it leaves a trace of, I think it's Teflon, I'm not sure. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this on the screws. I'm not going to go mad with it. I'm just going to put a few drops on, and because I do think it will help. That's probably a little bit more than I wanted. I think you do need to shake it up to get the particles of Teflon or whatever it is into suspension. Literally, I'm putting the lightest amount I can on it. Will it make any difference? I've got no idea, but I've tried, haven't I? I was obviously there must be some dirt on these screws and slides, probably from the original machining, because it's come off on the rag there. You can see it's dirty. Oh, I actually did feel a difference there. I think I must have just, I think the nut on the table has just hit that lubricant, and yeah, I can actually feel it. It is actually moving a lot easier. That has made a difference. Whether or not it'll help the machine function, that's a different question altogether, isn't it? I definitely think I am going to drop this gantry down because it doesn't need to be so high, and I think anything that reduces the height of the machine is going to improve things. I mean, I'm going to be using this, if anything, for PCB milling probably, because I do have a big milling machine in the garage. The idea was to try and mill PCBs, so I don't need the Z-axis, I don't need the height, so I think what I want to do is drop it down as close to the table as I can, because it's not doing anything useful for me. I'm not going to do that today, I'll do that another day. What I'll probably do is I'm going to 3D print something which will go on the side of here where I can mount a dial test indicator from, because then what I am going to try again, I'm going to try and do is I'm going to set up the Y-axis, sorry, the X-axis. I'm going to try to set that X-axis to be as level as I can with the top of the table. So I'm going to set a dial test indicator off here and slide it backwards and forwards, but again, that's something to do for another day. Now, I'm only clamping these lightly because I think if you try to rive on these, the only thing that you're going to do is you're just going to distort the bed on it. So yeah, that's light, and I'm afraid they are a little bit Heath Robinson, these clamps that I've put on here. They're not, the way I've done it isn't really the way to do it, but it'll do for this quick and dirty test. An unboxing video. Now, I bought this potentially to use with the CNC machine, but not necessarily because of that. I also just bought it because I'd fancy playing with one. So, anybody guess what's going to be in my box? just work out, can you guys read the text on there? I'm going to turn it over so you can't read it. Right, come on then. This is the game that we play. Anybody guess what's in the box? It's something which we could use with our CNC machine. Anybody know the answer? Come on, place your bets. First one who knows, shout out. So I'm going to tease you with it. Let's see who knows what it might be. I'm going to take them out first because that might be a bit of a giveaway. Hello! Cool those actually, aren't they? What do you think? Do I look better like that? Oh, we've got another Chinesium def adapter. What's the output of this one? Not very much power at all actually. Oh, 12 volts, 1000 milliamps. Doesn't necessarily inspire confidence, does it? Anybody guess yet? Come on, shout out as soon as you know. Okay, so what we've got here is a 405 nanometer 500 milliwatt laser, and the reason I got this was because, well, I got to admit, I just got it because I'm quite interested in playing with a laser. Many years ago I used to kind of collect various types of, you know, this is when you used to have laser gas tubes, and I used to have quite a lot of lasers, but I've kind of given them away and sold them over the years. And but I've never had a solid state laser. I mean, I've obviously seen them in DVD players and stuff like that, but I've never, you know, I've never owned one myself. So I thought what we could try to do, we could try and fit this onto the CNC mill. It's obviously not one that's necessarily designed to work with an engraver, because I think a lot of the ones that are really designed to work with engravers, they have a separate control cable that goes to them. So the only thing that I would have thought we can actually do with this is to switch on and off the power to it. So, well, should we give it, without waffling on any longer, should we actually just give it a try? And as the old joke goes, do not stare into laser with remaining eye.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
My love spots are on fire. Help, help. Rubbish.